Welcome back to the Blathering Boomer. I should have known better. I should have known better than to play something that's potentially copyrighted. Man, that thing moves fast. I played a few minutes of Bill Maher talking. So I'm not sure how other people get away with this. I don't know if they pay people or how this all works. I don't know. I'm new at this. I'm not a journalist. I'm not even really a podcaster. I just like to get up here and blather about stuff. So I only have one person watching now, but hopefully all the people who are watching the aborted live stream will somehow figure out that I'm live again. Anyway, let me get to what I didn't get to before. So, I've made my feelings known in several blathers regarding the woke movement. Woke movement being an oxymoron, among other things. Woke movement, yeah. But while I refuse to acknowledge wokeness as a movement per se, I most certainly recognize it as a reality, and I deal with that reality more than I care to deal with damp. And my inventory of people with whom I can have a political discussion free from animosity is getting very, very thin. Which again, I talked about the conversation I had with those good people. good people on both sides. Speaking of good people on both sides, by the way, it's the biggest hug. People still keep throwing the good people on both sides comments in my face. Do you realize what he was actually talking about? Do you realize what the whole Charlottesville thing was about? So basically, I didn't plan on talking about this, but Charlottesville was a demonstration which went sideways with that whole Jews will not replace us thing and all those white supremacists marching in the streets. But at its core, what it was about was the legitimate debate over taking down Civil War monuments that supported the South. Some would argue that it's part of our history and it deserves to not be erased. And some would argue that it's a shameful part of our history, slavery, etc., that needs to be erased. And Trump said there are good people on both sides of that question. He wasn't talking about good people on both sides when white supremacists are screaming in the streets, Jews will not replace us. But yet, it keeps getting perpetrated. It keeps getting spread. People keep using that as an argument to me for why I should condemn Donald Trump, which I refuse to do, which I did initially. Oh man, like I said, Fred Trump, who, I guess I could talk about Bill Maher without getting stopped by YouTube. But one of the things that Bill Maher did that with Trump, he when Trump was questioning Obama's birther thing, Maher went on there with a picture of Trump on one side and an orangutan on the other, basically saying that Fred Trump, Donald's father, might have been an orangutan, and Trump sued him for $5 million. So there was no love lost. The point being, Bill Maher went to the White House. Kid Rock arranged it, which it's all, you can't make this stuff up. It's what happened, though. And he had a cordial meeting with Donald Trump and saw the warm side of Trump, and that warm side does exist. I remember exactly when I thought I saw the warm side for the first time. It was, again, Trump goes down the escalator and he starts ranting and raving about Mexicans. He lost me. I'm walking my dog and these frat boys in a car pull up near me and they yell out, "Trump rules." And I, being from Brooklyn, I did the only thing I could do. I mooned them, patted myself on the butt, and I said, "Yeah, here's his kingdom." That's what I thought of Trump in 2015. Again, he was I grew up in a Trump-owned building, post-World War II veteran housing, cockroaches everywhere, heat sometimes, yes, sometimes no, and it gets cold in Brooklyn during the winter. I never liked them as landlords. Never, ever liked Fred. If I'm not mistaken, Donald took over the business after I took over the apartment. My parents moved out west, and I had a lifetime of not liking the man at all. And the first time I saw what might have been a warm side of him was during the Republican debates in 2016. They started introducing, it was like a Royal Rumble. The way they were introducing the candidates, they each come out one at a time with an announcement. Anyway, Ben Carson got confused Ben Carson, I guess, thought he was next. He walked out prematurely. He stopped. Then whoever it was who was supposed to go out went out. Ben didn't know what to do. He wasn't listening. His name got called. It was time for him to go on the stage, but he was kind of in limbo, and it's all on camera. And then Trump comes out from backstage, puts a friendly hand on Carson's shoulder and points to the stage. Now, he didn't have to do that. It's kind of, that was the first time I saw an inkling of humanity from Donald Trump. I'm like, oh, he didn't have to do that. That was kind of cool that he helped out one of his rivals, who's trying for the presidency. Anyway, so my opinion of Trump has changed, evolved, de-evolved, gone sideways, gone up, gone down. I'm not completely thrilled about the administration. I am proud that I voted for him. I'm sick of being in the closet about it. I'm sick of the looks I get from people when they figure out that I voted for Trump, or when I say I voted for Trump. When did who you vote for in an election become something to be closeted over, something to be canceled over? It doesn't make any sense. And I as I said a few minutes ago, I'm not real happy about the woke people, and I've lost some friendships to people who proudly call themselves woke. So I decided to find out from AI, and I asked the question, what is a woke person? And I got a very, very detailed response. AI said, a woke person is someone who is highly aware of and sensitive to social injustices, inequalities, and systemic issues, particularly those related to race, gender, class, and other forms of oppression. The term originates, and I didn't know this, I bet you didn't either. The term originates from African American Vernacular English, also known as AAVE, never heard of that, but now I have, where stay woke meant staying alert to racial prejudice and discrimination, especially in the context of civil rights and police brutality. Over time, its meaning has broadened out and evolved. Okay, so at its root, I'm all for that. Be alert to racial prejudice and discrimination, especially in the context of civil rights and police brutality. Of course, 100% agree. Where I maybe disagree is with the next sentence. Over time, its meaning has broadened. Well, it certainly has broadened and evolved. Well, I personally would argue it has devolved. But let's have AI go on. Today, a woke person is often categorized by awareness. They actively educate themselves about historical and ongoing injustices, such as systematic racism, sexism, or economic disparity. They speak out against these issues, often pushing for progressive change, equity. I don't like equity. I do not like equity. I want equality of opportunity. I do not want equality of outcome. Call me a, what do you call it? An ableist. I'll wear it. And inclusion. Inclusion's fine as long as it doesn't exclude people who maybe should have been included. Language and behavior. They tend to use inclusive, politically correct language and call out others for actions or words deemed offensive or insensitive. Okay, my disdain for political correctness goes way back. It goes back to the 90s. It goes back to the 80s when I was living in Berkeley. I have never been politically correct. It's what you think, it's what you do, it's how you treat people, not the words you choose. I will go to the wall on that one. If you disagree, send me a message on Twitter at UNG714, Ugly Nasty Guy 714, and tell me why you think that I should care more about language than about actions. I'll engage with you. Hey, cultural enlightenment. The woke might aligns with movements like Black Lives Matter, feminism, or LGBTQ plus rights, and critique power structures like capitalism or patriarchy. So yeah, it's definitely broadened its base. Now it goes on to say, however, the term has a dual perception. Positive. People see woke individuals as empathetic, informed, and morally driven to improve society, which I would have said absolutely I agree with back in the days when it was all about AAVE, which I just talked about. But there's also a negative. Critics, and I guess that includes myself, critics argue that woke people can be overly performative, dogmatic, or quick to cancel others for perceived slights, sometimes prioritizing ideology over practicality or free expression. I disagree with sometimes. It's a lot more than sometimes. It's usually. This has led to woke being used as a pejorative in some circles, especially among those who view it as excessive or hypocritical. Now, I've actually never used it as a pejorative that I'm aware of, except for one time when I was in the middle of a heated discussion and I did refer to something as woke nonsense on my way to a 50-year friendship circling the drain, which has never come back. But other than that, I tried. Well, anyway, we'll get further into this in just a second. I'll forget the other than that part. Anyway, the last thing that AI says, for example, a woke person might boycott a brand for unethical practices, use gender-neutral pronouns, or challenge a friend's offhand remark they deem problematic. Whether the label is a compliment or a jab depends heavily on who's using it and the context. What's your take on the term? Now, mind you, this was the first time I had ever used AI. So when it ended with, what's your take on the term? My response was, are you asking me? And AI said, yeah, I was curious about your perspective on woke since it's a loaded term these days, but no pressure. If you rather keep answering questions, what's on your mind next? At that point, it was right at that exact moment that the Cheech and Chong Cruise Chew gummy that I'd eaten an hour or so before kicked in. And I closed the laptop and looked around. It's like, whoa. I mean, whoa. This is my first AI experience. I'm like, what is up here? It blew my mind. I'm like, this thing wants to know what I think, and it's engaging when I say. I mean, I gave it a pretty complicated sentence, so I said, "Are you asking me?" So anyway, it asked me what I thought of woke, what kind of term I consider it to be, and I didn't want to say it was a positive term or a negative term. I said I just consider it to be a truthful term. And AI said, fair enough. Seeing woke as a truthful term suggests you value its roots in recognizing real issues like injustice or inequality without getting bogged down in the hype or backlash it sometimes attracts. It's a straightforward take. What else do you want to dig in? And then I'm like, I'm blown away by it. My mind's blown out. This is, I'm caring about AI's feelings at this point. I'm caring about what AI thinks of me at this point. I'm in brand new territory. So the next thing I said was, what else do I want to ask about? I said, well, it's more of a statement than a question. This is the first time I've had an interactive AI conversation. I must say I'm blown away. And it said back, glad you're enjoying it. It's pretty cool to be your first interactive AI chat. And I'm stoked you're blown away. What's hitting you the most about it? The back and forth, the info, or just the vibe? Anything else you want to talk out there? Statement or question? I'm here for it. And then it went on and on and on from there. And so the blathering boomer had his first AI experience, and it was a hell of a thing. So now I am going to, with 6 people watch, God, I still lost half the people who are watching my aborted, thanks to YouTube's copyright censorship thing, my aborted live stream. But hopefully people will watch this on the flip-flop after I edit it. Anyway, I'm going to do this live right now because back on this thing about woke and leftism, I have always considered myself to be a lifetime leftist. I have always identified as left of center. Always, always, always. Yeah, I've seen these guys, the Grateful Dead, 74 times. Maybe that doesn't prove it, any kind of ideology, but it certainly shows a trend. Not too many people who are members of Breitbart have seen the Grateful Dead 74 times. And I'm not counting Dead and Company. I'm not counting Further. I'm not counting the other ones. I'm not counting any of the, I've never actually even seen Fish. Grateful Dead, 74 times. Capitol Theater, 1977, Passaic, New Jersey was my first. First amphitheater, Stanford University campus, 1989 was my last. In between those times, I saw the Grateful Dead 74 times. Okay, and I've now blathered myself off topic because I want to get back to this whole left and right thing. So I've had more conversations with AI, and I finally said to it, please give me 10 questions that will help determine where I sit on the left right political spectrum, because I am so ashamed of what people who identify as left have been doing. People who identify as left, a lot of them are supporting Hamas. I agree. There's horrible death and destruction in Gaza. And you know whose fault it is? It's Hamas's fault. You attacked Israel. Israel's retaliating. They're doing their best to mitigate civilian casualties. But when you have people in tunnels under hospitals and using people as human shields, there's going to be collateral damage. I was very, very heartened when the people in Gaza started rising up a couple of weeks ago. I hope it continues. I hope so, because there can't be a two-state solution if Hamas is in power. This will happen as they promised. It'll happen again and again and again. And linking that up with my series on Bangladesh, and as I said in the aborted live stream that maybe never will be, I do believe that what's happening in Bangladesh and what's happening in Gaza are two fronts of the same war. Islamists, not to be confused with people who practice Islam. Islam's a beautiful religion. Islamism, which sounds too much like Islam because people get confused, but Islamism, as far as I know, is a philosophy, if you can call it a philosophy, that if you don't follow Sharia law and practice strict teachings of the Quran, you need to either leave, convert, or die. That's an actual thing that's happening in Bangladesh now. So I think that the struggles of the Bengali people to regain their independence, and I think that the struggles of the Israeli people to live in peace, are two different facets of the same struggle. That's just my opinion. That's my opinion. I'm not saying that as fact. Anyway, back to AI. So before I went on tonight, I asked AI, please give me 10 questions that can help me determine where I sit on the left-right spectrum, because I've done my early podcasts. One was actually called Reclaiming the Left for Actual Leftists. But now I'm questioning, maybe it's time for me to give it up. Maybe it's time for me to tear up my leftist ID card. So I'm going to do this live and in real time, and I don't think I'm going to have any copyright issues talking to AI. So I have not answered these questions. And I answered the questions with a question. So AI said, here are 10 questions to help gauge your position on the left-right political spectrum. Answer them on a scale from strongly agree to strongly disagree, or provide your stance for more nuanced assessment. And I said, in answering, can I use a 1 to 10 scale, with 1 being strongly disagree and 10 being strongly agree? And it said, yes, you can absolutely use a 1 to 10 scale, where 1 strongly disagree and 10 is strongly agree. Please provide your ratings for each of the 10 questions, and I'll analyze them to help determine where you sit on the left-right political spectrum. So all 6 of you watching live are invited to do this with me. So maybe take out a pencil and paper. I'll kind of slow down. I'll kind of blather a little bit, give you time to grab it. Or you can just watch the edited version of this when it airs in a day or two. But I'm going to answer these questions in real time, and we're all going to find out together where I sit in the left-right spectrum. And I reject titles. I never liked the term liberal. I never liked the term conservative. I don't believe in labels. I don't believe in white, black, Jew, Christian, any of it. We're all people, okay? But we live in this world. I live in this world, and I keep hearing leftist thrown about as a pejorative, and I've resented that. But maybe I can stop resenting it, because maybe I'm not a leftist anymore. So let me share my screen and get those questions up, and I'm going to give my answers live to AI as I come up with that. So the first of these 10 questions: economic redistribution. Should the government significantly increase taxes on high earners to fund social programs like universal health care or income support? I'm glad that's not a yes or no question. I'm glad that's a question I can answer in a range. So for question number one, I do like universal health care. I know that not everybody agrees with universal health care, but I do like universal health care. I think some social programs, the ones that aren't wasteful, are important. And I'm all for people having a good way of life as long as they help themselves. I'm not for a welfare state, but I am for supplementing people and helping them help themselves. So, and as far as the tax on high earners, yeah, I mean, I'm going to go away. I'm not going to agree with significantly. I'm just going to go with somewhat. So I'm going to give number one a 7. So yeah, 1 is strongly disagree, 10 is strongly agree. So I'm giving that one a 7. So I kind of somewhat agree on that. So for number two is free market. Do you believe businesses should operate with minimal government regulation to maximize economic growth? Well, I have an agenda in that one because I've had my own business for 31 years. I'm living my dream ever since the first time my sister took me on a subway and I saw the man in the booth selling subway tokens, 15 cents a piece. People giving him money. And he pushed the subway token forward and he put the money aside. I wanted to be him. I've wanted my own business ever since I saw. So that was what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to have my own subway station where I could sell tokens to people. I'm going to give that one a 7 also. And let me see if I could. So number 1, 7. Number 2, I'm going 7 on that one also. Number 3, social equality. Should the government actively enforce policies to ensure equal outcomes for different racial, gender, or socioeconomic groups? As I think is already clear, I pretty strongly disagree with that. So I'm going to give number 3 a 2. Number 4, individual liberty. Is it more important to protect individual freedoms, such as free speech, even if it offends certain groups, than to prioritize social harmony? Is it more important to protect individual freedom? Okay, so I see what they're saying. So the question is, do I support unabashed free speech no matter what? Obviously, free speech doesn't include yelling theater in a crowded fire. But I do think that some speech right now is leading to violence, and there's a problem with that. And I do tend to be well, I'm not going to say a constitutionalist, but a firm believer in the Bill of Rights. So this is where the freedom of speech crisscrosses or clashes with the social fabric. So since I still lean in that direction, I'm going to give number 4 a 6. Now let's go to number 5. Immigration. Should borders be tightly controlled with strict immigration policies, or should there be more open pathways for immigration? Well, that's not something I can just agree or disagree. So I'm going to say tightly controlled, 10. If you believe in open borders, you should never lock your door, because by believing in open borders, you can say anybody can come in who wants to come in, just like Earth People's Park. But if you leave your door unlocked, your house is going to turn into Earth People's Park. People are going to come in there, claim they live there, decide to live there, not going to help out. They're going to get drunk. They're going to stop peeing on the floor. Every bad thing that can happen will happen. And it's sad. It's a sad thing about the human condition. So for number 5, I said tightly controlled, and I gave that a 10. I think, I might have said more like an 8 if we didn't just have 4 years of open borders, but we have a mess right now. And the services that are being given to people who are here illegally are really, really putting a strain on the system. And it's harder and harder for people who are legitimately getting aid to get the aid. Anyway, So yeah, I believe at this moment in time, tightly controlled borders. All right, number seven. Wait, how many was that? One, two, three, four, five. That was number five. Yeah. So number six is environmental policy. Should the government prioritize aggressive climate change policies, even if they increase costs for businesses and consumers? Um, I've become a little bit agnostic when it comes to the environment and when it comes to climate change. I used to be all about it, but the movement has become so stupid. People gluing themselves to highways, defacing art. The things they're doing have nothing to do with the movement. Yes, yeah, of course. Um, if somebody is blatantly violating climate change policies and really hurting the environment, of course the government should step in. But God, I would have been a 10 on that question 4 years ago, but now I'm only going to give number six and eight. Okay, let's go to number seven. Gun rights. Do you support strong restrictions on gun ownership, or do you believe individuals should have broad rights to own firearms? And I'm being asked that question on the same day that there's a school shooting in Florida. I don't know a lot of the details. I heard that some people were hurt or killed. It's tragic. It's horrible whenever these things happen. But the other thing you can count on, besides blood being spilled when these things happen, is all the gun control advocates come out and say, aha, we need to abolish the Second Amendment. I'm just going to go with a five on that one because I really do see both sides of the issue. If what's the saying? If you criminalize gun ownership, only criminals will have guns. I want the good guys to have guns, and I don't want the bad guys to have guns. And I don't know that blanket gun control addresses that at all. So for number seven, I'm just going to go with a five. I'm going to be what Caitlin Johnstone would call a wanker and be right in the middle on that one. That's number seven. Number eight, traditional values. And again, I'm reading this out loud for the first time. This is a cold reading. Should society preserve traditional culture and family structures or embrace progressive changes in social norms? Once again, that's not a question that you can agree or disagree with that. So I think I need to elaborate a little bit. I'm all for progressive changes in social norms, but that doesn't include allowing biological men into women's spaces. It does not allow, God, the one time I had an argument with somebody about various politics, and I went to this issue and I said, because I got told that Trump was not defending women's rights, and I'm like, well, what about women's rights to have their own sport? What about women's rights to not have men parading around with their penises hanging down in their locker rooms? And the answer I got was, well, that's not as important as world hunger. What a cop out. What a deflection. What a masterful deflection. Again, because it's somebody I respect and I like, and I didn't want to get into it. I just let that one go. But to answer AI's question, there's a certain amount of tradition, sure, but we have to evolve as people. So I'm going to say embrace changes with a six. With a six, because I agree with embracing changes, but in theory, but the reality is that it's gone too far. So that's embrace changes with a six. I'm hoping AI understands how I'm answering these. Number nine, foreign policy. Should the country focus on domestic issues and reduce involvement in international conflicts, or actively engage in global leadership? We have problems right here at home. I'm not going to say we have to be isolationist. If not for America, it's very likely that the world will be speaking German right now. So we have to be aware of what's going on in the world. I do think that, and again, I've been against funding Ukraine, and I've been for supporting Israel, which is a very rare position. So I think that involvement in international things depends on the specific situation. I think that without America's help, Israel would be annihilated, very, very likely. So I think that's important. And I also think without America's help, Ukraine would be annihilated, and I wouldn't celebrate that. But in the case of Ukraine, Europe needs to step up and do their share if they think that Putin's the threat that he is. So focus on domestic issues or reduce involvement in international conflicts. I'm going to say focus on domestic with a 7. Okay, number 9. Number 9. Number 9. Number 9. What was that? Oh, that was number 9. Number 9. Number 9. And last but not least, number 10. Let's see. Criminal justice. Should the justice system prioritize rehabilitation and addressing root causes of crime, or focus on stricter enforcement and punishment? As a graduate of the prison system, I should have an opinion on that. I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, the thing of it is, they didn't do anything to rehabilitate me when I was locked up. All they did was feed me and confine me, and I'm not sure there's anything after the "and." So I just did time. Sure, if rehabilitation is something, hey, I'll put it out there right now. I would love to volunteer to speak to inmates at a prison, nonviolent ones, please. I don't want to get stabbed. But the fact of the matter is, when I was 22 years old, I was sentenced to 1 year to life in state prison on a drug offense. And I did my time. And I was on parole for several years afterwards. And I now am a fairly successful businessman. The point being that prison doesn't have to end your life. Prison, as I tell in one of my stories, long story short, when I asked somebody about the prospect of going to prison, and I said that would be years out of your life, he corrected me. He said, no, if I have to go to prison, it wouldn't be years out of my life. It would be years of my life. So I think that if the people who run the prisons would listen to him and make prison, yeah, you have to be off the streets. These people need to be away. And in some cases, they need to be punished severely. But if they could make it so that prison's an experience that you carry some things you learn with you back into the outside world and focus on rehab. So I'm going to give rehabilitation a 9. Rehabilitation 9. Okay, so I have no idea if AI is going to understand the format in which I answered these questions, but let's see what AI has to say about all of this. Thank you for providing your ratings on a 1 to 10 scale. Below, I'll analyze your response, determining where you sit, like it goes through each one. So rather than go through each one, it says that I have some left-leaning positions, strong support for climate action, strong preference for rehabilitation, moderate support for economic distribution, right-leaning opposed to neutral bounds, where I sit in the spectrum. Your scores suggest you're a centrist with leanings in both directions, likely falling near the center-right or center-left, depending on the issue. Here's why. Your support for redistribution leans left, but your agreement with free market principles leans right, indicating a pragmatic or mixed economic stance, possibly favoring anyway, it's a pretty long thing. Likely position that goes to you're likely a moderate or centrist with a slight right leaning tilt due to your strong positions on immigration and opposition to equal outcomes, balanced by left leaning views on climate, criminal justice, social progress. Hey, I'm all good with all this. I'm all good with all of it. I would love to do this for any of you who heard these questions, who wrote them down. Let me get that off my screen. If you heard the questions, you wrote them down, or watch this thing again, I'm gonna edit out the potatoes and just keep the meat as best I can. But go ahead send me a private message on Twitter at UNG714, Ugly Nasty Guy 714, and I will feed your answers into AI and get back to you on where you sit on that left right political spectrum. Okay. Lastly, I did ask AI one more question because people are freaking out, absolutely freaking out. Boomers, my fellow boomers, many of them are absolutely freaking out. They're beside themselves. They are sure that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are about to cut Social Security benefits. So now that I've have a bit of a relationship with my AI friend, I asked the question. Oops. And let's see. Well, let me shut this one down. And I'm going to go with this one. Sorry about these delays. I'm still a boomer no matter how much I do this. You can't take the boo out of boomer. And so I asked, is Trump/Doge planning to cut Social Security benefits? Pretty straightforward question. I'll just read the answer verbatim. President Trump and the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, led by Elon Musk, have explicitly stated they will not cut Social Security benefits. Trump has repeatedly affirmed this commitment, including in a White House fact check on March 11th, 2025, emphasizing that Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid benefits will remain untouched. Do you hear that? Do you hear that, friends? Do you hear that? Especially friends of friends and friends who have other friends who are freaking out about Social Security. Once again, Trump has repeatedly affirmed this commitment that emphasizing Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid benefits will remain untouched. Okay? And it's AI talking. It's got to be true, right? The administration's focus is on reducing waste, fraud, and improper payments within these programs, citing estimates of $521 billion in annual fraud and $72 billion in improper Social Security payments between 2015 and 2022. DOGE's efforts include streamlining operations such as cutting 7,000 SSA jobs, 12% of its workforce, and closing some field offices to improve efficiency. Now, I have heard this argument. I have heard the argument. Hopefully, you can tell when I'm talking and not reading. So I'm blathering now. But I've heard the argument that that cutting all these people is going to lead to bad. Anyway, it goes on. I won't put words in AI's mouth. How could I do that? Critics, including Democrats and advocacy groups, argue these actions could indirectly harm beneficiaries. Staff reductions and office closures have led to longer wait times, overwhelmed phone lines, and system outages, raising concerns about access to services. Some, like Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, claim the administration's goal is to destroy Social Security from within by making it inefficient, potentially creating a pretext for future cuts or privatization. Reports also highlight new policies like requiring in-person or online identity verification starting April 14th, 2025, which could disproportionately burden older Americans and those with disabilities. Now, okay, when I first signed up for Social Security, whatever number of years ago it was, actually I didn't start getting benefits until I was 70, so it was a year and change ago. It was extremely, extremely frustrating. And that's with the 7,000 people still working there. So I get it. I understand long hold times. I understand that frustration. But I also think that operating that agency efficiently is more, I think it's short-term pain for long-term gain. I might be naive about that. You could let me know if you think so. Comment or write to me. But I think that just like the rest of Doge and just like the crap that's happening with tariffs, which I'm not going to get into today, it's short term. It's definitely pain, but again, it's the concept versus the execution. I completely agree with the concept. If he's going in there with a buzzsaw instead of a scalpel, well, that might make it go faster, but will it go right? I don't know. I don't really have an answer for that. Something has to be done, though. The country is $36 trillion in debt. And if we don't address the debt and if we don't operate more efficiently, cut the budget, Bill Clinton balanced the budget. And on an economic level, he's my favorite president in my lifetime. I'd like to see Trump balance the budget. Will you stop trashing him if Trump balances the budget? I doubt it. Trump can walk on water, and they say he paid off the ocean. Anyway, Trump's proposal to eliminate taxes on Social Security benefits, while popular, is projected to worsen the program's finances. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget estimates it could increase Social Security's shortfall by $2.3 trillion, advancing insolvency from 2034 to 2031. Whoa. Insolvency from 2034 to 2031. 2034, I'll only be 80, which I hope is along 2031. That's coming up. That's only one more. That's during the administration of the next president, necessitating a 33% benefit cut by 2035 if not addressed. Okay, so apparently AI doesn't think eliminating tax on Social Security benefits is a good idea. That's AI's opinion. It may very well be right. I have no facts to argue with it, and I have no facts with which to agree with it. Last paragraph. On X, I still call it Twitter, sentiments are mixed. Supporters argue Trump and Doge are strengthening Social Security by targeting fraud, while critics warn that layoffs and services disruptions are effectively backdoor cuts. In summary, while Trump and Doge maintain they are not cutting benefits and aim to protect Social Security, their operational changes and tax proposals raise concern among experts and advocates about long-term access and solvency. Always dig into primary sources and question narratives, both from the administration and its critics, to form your own view. Okay. Well, that was that. So JM says Rigo cut over 370,000 jobs. I'm actually not sure what Rigo is, but thank you, JM, for commenting there. If I find out more about Rigo in the next minute or two, because I'm about to wind this one down. And I'm paying short-term pain for long-term gain, but if it's true that having no tax on Social Security will cause the system to bankrupt 3 years earlier than planned, well, that's short-term gain for long-term pain. Okay, so now I'm told Rigo was Clinton. Well, yeah. Okay, so there it is. There, he cut 370,000 jobs, and good for him. It's probably how he balanced the budget. Good for him. Again, AI thinks I'm a bit of a centrist. Bill Clinton was a centrist, and it's what got him elected. And again, I've said this before. What's been happening in this country, the Republicans take power. There's wars, there's bank bailouts, all this crazy stuff. It goes way too far that way. Then the Democrats come in with their DEI and all this and all that and woke stuff, and it goes too far that way. And then Republicans come back in and they're tearing up all the things Democrats in that goes too far that way. There wasn't any of that under Clinton that I'm aware of. Clinton cut it right down the middle. He got elected on that. We had 12 years of Reagan and Bush. The country was ready for Democrat rule, and Clinton was the man for the moment, and he balanced the budget. Not only that, but he played a mean saxophone. Man, I loved him on Arsenio Hall, I got to say. So anyway, thank you. Thank you very much for all the people watching now. Anybody who's a refugee from the original live stream that got aborted by my copyright infringement on Mr. Marr, who I was starting to like, and now I don't like him anymore, and I'm just kidding. But anyway, that's all I have for tonight. It's been exhausting. This is my second live stream in the same night. Once again, I am going to do part 3 of my series on Bangladesh. I'm going to tape it this weekend. My guest / expert on the topic, Saifullah, he gave me and anybody who listened a really, really good history of what's been happening in Bangladesh since 1971. Bengalis have reverence for the year 1971, just like patriotic Americans do for 1776, just like Zionists have that kind of reverence for 1948. Um, so so watch for that. Again, I'm doing that because nobody else is covering it. I'm not claiming I'm doing a great job. Safula's doing an amazing job. Safula is brilliant, and so there you have it. You have a Brooklyn-born, California-living Jew talking to a Bangladesh-born, European-living Muslim about the plight of Hindus in Bangladesh. If that's not enough of a teaser to get you watching, I don't know what to tell you. But what I'll tell you now is the boomer has blathered a little more than he bargained for. Peace out. Thank you to all 7 who are still watching. Thank you to the few dozen who will watch after I put up an edited version of this in the next couple of days. And stay safe, be kind, and have a good one.